The class laughed when a little black girl said her mother worked at NASA. Even the teacher couldn't hold back a mocking smile. But moments later, when the classroom door opened, silence swallowed the room. Because the woman they all doubted walked in wearing a NASA badge. What happened next taught everyone a lesson they'd never forget. So make sure you subscribe, like, and share, because stories like this remind us how powerful belief can be. The smell of chalk and freshly sharpened pencils filled the air at Jefferson Elementary School. It was a Monday morning, the kind that starts with sleepy faces and scattered giggles. But for one little girl named Amara Johnson, this day would be remembered forever. Amara was 10, a small girl with warm brown skin, eyes full of light, and a curiosity that made her teachers call her the quiet thinker. She sat in the middle row, her backpack neatly tucked under her chair, her favorite pencil lined up perfectly on her desk. Her teacher, Mrs. Parker, was preparing the new week's project, a cheerful exercise she called Family Dreams. "All right, class," she said, her voice upbeat. "Today we'll share what our parents do for work and what you dream to be when you grow up." The students clapped and cheered. One by one they began sharing. "My dad's a mechanic," shouted Ethan. "My mom's a nurse," said Lily, proudly waving her hand. "My parents own a pizza shop," added Jordan, earning a few cheers. Laughter bounced off the classroom walls, happy, innocent, full of childhood excitement. Then Mrs. Parker looked at Amara. She smiled warmly. "Amara, sweetheart, your turn." Amara took a deep breath. Her heart thumped, but she stood up confidently. Her voice was small but certain. "My mom works at NASA." For a second, silence filled the room. Then came the laughter. "NASA?" one boy snorted. "You mean like Space NASA?" Another girl laughed. "Yeah, right. Maybe she sweeps the rockets." Even Mrs. Parker's lips twitched as she tried to keep her smile steady. "Oh, Amara," she said softly. "You must mean she works for NASA. Maybe in maintenance or something, right?" Amara's face didn't change. "No, ma'am," she said calmly. "She's an aerospace engineer." The laughter returned, louder this time. The kind of laughter that doesn't just mock, it stings. "An engineer?" a boy muttered. "Come on, she's lying," Mrs. Parker sighed. "That's quite a dream, Amara, but maybe next time be a little more realistic, okay?" Amara felt something twist inside her. She wanted to speak, but her throat burned. She sat down quietly, gripping her pencil tight. The laughter faded, replaced by the rustle of paper and pencils. But in Amara's mind, the sound kept echoing, over and over. That afternoon when the bell rang, Amara packed her bag slowly. The others ran out to the playground, but she stayed behind for a moment. Mrs. Parker approached her gently. "Don't be upset, Amara. I just don't want you to feel disappointed. NASA is a big dream." Amara looked up. Her eyes shimmered, not with tears, but with pride. "It's not a dream, ma'am," she said softly. "It's the truth." Mrs. Parker paused, speechless. As Amara walked home, her sneakers crunching against the gravel path, she repeated to herself, "Someday they'll believe me." At home, the front door opened to the warm smell of cocoa and the soft hum of music. And there she was, Dr. Naomi Johnson, Amara's mother, wearing a blue NASA hoodie, typing equations into her laptop. Amara dropped her bag, ran to her mom, and hugged her tightly. Naomi smiled. "What's wrong, baby?" Amara looked up. "They laughed, Mama, when I told them you work at NASA." Naomi paused, then pulled her daughter closer. "Let them laugh," she whispered. That's how change starts, with someone brave enough to tell the truth before the world is ready to hear it. Amara smiled faintly, her heart still heavy, but her spirit strong. And though she didn't know it yet, the next day would change everything, because the truth once hidden was about to walk right into that classroom. That night the moon hung low over the Johnson home, a small 2-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. From the window, Amara could see the stars, twinkling like little secrets waiting to be discovered. Her mother, Dr. Naomi Johnson, sat at the kitchen table surrounded by papers, blueprints, and a glowing laptop screen filled with complex calculations. Her dark curls were tied back, her face glowing in the light of the screen, a NASA badge clipped to her lanyard beside a half-empty mug of coffee. "Are you still working, Mama?" Amara asked, peeking from the doorway in her pajamas. Naomi smiled softly. Just finishing something important, baby. You should be asleep. I couldn't. Amara hesitated. I kept thinking about school. Everyone laughed when I said you worked for NASA. Naomi's eyes softened. She closed her laptop and motioned her daughter over. Come here. Amara climbed onto her mother's lap, the warmth of her hug melting away the hurt from earlier. Amara, Naomi began, brushing her daughter's cheek, when I was your age, people laughed at me, too. They said girls like me couldn't be scientists. They said I should dream smaller. Amara frowned. What did you do? Naomi smiled. I dreamed bigger. She stood up and pointed toward the night sky. Do you see that bright star right there? That's how I used to see my dream, so far away it looked impossible. But every night I studied. Every morning I worked twice as hard. I failed. I cried. But I never stopped believing. Amara listened closely, her little hands resting on her mother's NASA badge. Naomi continued, her voice steady but emotional. When I got to college, I was one of only 3 black women in my engineering program. Some professors didn't even call me by my name. They called me Scholarship Girl. Her tone darkened slightly. One even said NASA doesn't look for people like you. Amara's eyes widened. That's mean. Naomi nodded. It was, but I didn't let it stop me. Because every time someone doubted me, I imagined them watching when I finally succeeded. And that made me unstoppable. She turned to Amara, placing a hand on her shoulder. So when your classmates laugh, don't feel small. Feel powerful. Because they just told you what kind of world still needs changing. And you, my love, were born to change it. Amara's eyes shimmered with pride. Do you think I can work at NASA too? Naomi smiled warmly. Baby, you can work anywhere your heart leads you, as long as you remember who you are. She tucked Amara into bed a few minutes later, but the little girl couldn't sleep. Her mother's words played in her head again and again. Feel powerful. The next morning, Amara woke up early. She packed her books, tied her braids neatly, and slipped a tiny drawing into her pocket, a rocket flying through the stars, with 2 stick figures waving from below, me and Mom. At breakfast, Naomi handed her daughter a lunchbox and kissed her forehead. Be brave today, okay? Amara nodded with determination. Neither of them knew that this day would bring the moment they'd both remember forever. Because fate had a surprise waiting, one that would make every laugh from yesterday vanish in a heartbeat. Back at school, Mrs. Parker was preparing for Career Week. She wanted parents to come in and speak about their jobs. Mechanics, bakers, nurses, firefighters, and when she looked at the sign-up sheet, she noticed something that made her pause. Right there in neat handwriting was a new name. Dr. Naomi Johnson, NASA Aerospace Engineer. Mrs. Parker blinked twice, thinking it must be a joke. But she didn't know yet. The truth was about to walk straight into her classroom. The next morning at Lincoln Elementary began like any other. But to Amara, everything felt heavier. The stares, the whispers, the quiet giggles from the back row. Hey, NASA girl, one boy snickered as she took her seat. Did your mom land on Mars yet? Another teased. Amara tried to ignore them, clutching her notebook. She wanted to shout, to defend her mom, but she remembered her mother's words, feel powerful. Mrs. Parker walked in, her usual confident smile in place. All right, class, she began. Today's the first day of our Career Week. A few parents will be joining us over the next few days to talk about their jobs. Students cheered. Is your dad coming, Jake? My mom's bringing donuts. Amara stayed quiet. Her name wasn't on the list, or so she thought. Mrs. Parker shuffled her papers, glancing at the sign-up sheet again. Our first guest will be here any minute, she said, straightening her blazer. Let's make a good impression. 10 minutes passed. The classroom buzzed with whispers. Who's coming first? Probably someone boring, like an accountant. Suddenly, there was a soft knock at the door. Mrs. Parker looked up. Ah, that must be them. She walked over, opened the door, and froze. Standing there was a woman with smooth brown skin, her hair pulled into neat curls, a navy blue blazer resting over a white blouse. On her chest, clipped neatly, was a NASA identification badge that caught the light. Behind her stood the principal, smiling proudly. Class, Mrs. Parker said, her voice faltering, please welcome Dr. Naomi Johnson. The room went silent. The same silence that happens right after thunder, when even the air feels frozen. Amara's eyes widened. She blinked twice, as if afraid this was just a dream. Her mother smiled at her, warm and calm. "Good morning, everyone," a few students whispered. "Wait, that's her mom? The NASA one?" Naomi nodded politely. "Yes, I'm Amara's mother. I'm an aerospace engineer at NASA's Johnson Space Center." Mrs. Parker's throat went dry. She forced a laugh. "Oh, well, how lovely! We were just talking about space last week," Naomi smiled. "Then maybe I can help make it more real." She placed a sleek silver case on the teacher's desk and opened it, revealing small rocket models, NASA patches, and photos of real spacecraft. The students leaned forward in awe. "This," she said, holding up a photo, "is the Artemis rocket, the one we're developing to send humans back to the moon and eventually to Mars." The class gasped. Naomi's tone was calm but powerful. "I design propulsion systems, the engines that make these rockets fly. It's not easy, but every dream worth chasing never is." Amara watched, her heart swelling with pride. For the first time, she saw her mother not as just mom, but as the woman who turned impossible dreams into blueprints and reality. Then Naomi turned toward the students. "Do any of you like science?" Hands shot up everywhere. Even the ones who had mocked Amara earlier looked suddenly interested. Naomi smiled. "Good, because you don't have to look a certain way or come from a certain place to do something great. You just have to believe, even when others don't." Mrs. Parker's face reddened slightly. She clasped her hands, trying to hide her discomfort. But Naomi wasn't finished. "Before I start, I'd like to ask, did any of you know I was coming today?" Amara hesitated, raising her hand. "I didn't, Mama." Naomi smiled gently. "Then it's a surprise for both of us." The class chuckled softly, tension melting into curiosity. But under that calm, Naomi sensed something, the way her daughter's shoulders still slumped, the way some students avoided her gaze. Something had happened before she arrived. And by the end of this lesson, she intended to find out exactly what it was. The room was still, charged with an electricity that made every student sit up straighter. Naomi opened her case and began to display small rocket models, diagrams, and photos of her work at NASA. Amara's classmates leaned forward, captivated. Whispers from yesterday were gone, replaced by awe. Naomi's voice carried softly but firmly. "Science is about asking questions, testing ideas, and believing in evidence, but it is never about assuming someone cannot achieve something because of their skin color, gender, or age." Mrs. Parker shifted uncomfortably in her chair. She cleared her throat, trying to speak. "Well, I just wanted to make sure kids understood reality." Naomi turned to her slowly, her gaze steady. "Reality, Mrs. Parker, isn't what you imagine it to be. Reality is what exists, whether you choose to believe it or not." Amara's heart pounded. She had never seen her mother like this, so calm, yet so commanding. Naomi continued, directing her attention back to the class. "Amara told you yesterday that I work at NASA. Some of you laughed, some doubted her, and that's natural until it becomes unfair judgment. That's when it stops being skepticism and becomes prejudice." She picked up a model rocket and held it high. "I design propulsion systems like this for rockets that will carry humans to the moon and Mars. I do this because I worked hard, because I studied, and because I refused to accept the limits others tried to place on me. And yes, Amara sees this, learns from it, and knows she can do the same." A hush fell over the room. The students who had laughed yesterday looked down at their desks, ashamed. Some whispered apologies to Amara. Naomi knelt down slightly to Amara's level. "Do you know why I'm here today, Amara?" Amara shook her head. "I'm here to show the world, starting with this classroom, that truth cannot be laughed away, and to remind everyone that courage is not loud. Sometimes it is the quiet voice that says, 'I will not let your doubts define me.'" Amara's eyes shimmered with tears, pride, and relief. She straightened in her seat. Naomi turned back to the class. "Science, like life, requires courage, It requires curiosity, and it requires believing in yourself even when no one else does. A red-haired boy timidly raised his hand. So, you mean it doesn't matter who you are? You can still do amazing things? Naomi smiled warmly. Exactly. It matters who you believe yourself to be. Mrs. Parker swallowed hard. She felt the weight of her own words and actions. She had laughed, had doubted, had unknowingly passed her biases on to the students. Naomi's gaze softened as she spoke directly to her. Mrs. Parker, every teacher wants their students to succeed, but sometimes success isn't about correcting mistakes. It's about noticing the brilliance in someone who looks different from what we expect. The principal, who had quietly been watching, nodded. It's a lesson for all of us. Naomi turned back to the students. And now, who wants to learn how these rockets really work? Hands shot up across the classroom. Curiosity, excitement, and inspiration replaced the previous laughter. Amara raised her hand proudly. Her mother's presence gave her confidence she had never felt before. For the first time, she realized something important. The world could doubt her, but no one could stop her from believing in herself. By the end of the class, Mrs. Parker had changed. Her posture softened, her smile returned, this time genuine. She whispered quietly to herself, I hope I can teach them better after today. The classroom door closed, leaving a stillness that felt different than before, lighter, full of possibility and of lessons learned. And for Amara, it was the moment she understood that bravery didn't always roar. Sometimes it quietly stood tall in the face of doubt and changed everything. The following morning, Jefferson Elementary felt different. The laughter from yesterday was gone. The air seemed lighter, charged with curiosity and newfound respect. Amara walked into the classroom, her backpack snug on her shoulders, her notebooks tucked neatly inside. She felt a strange thrill, not from pride, but from the courage she had discovered within herself. As she approached her desk, whispers floated around her. Did you see her mom yesterday? She really works at NASA? Amara is amazing. Even the boy who had mocked her before paused, a flicker of embarrassment in his eyes. Mrs. Parker, her expression now softer, gave a small nod. Good morning, Amara, she said sincerely. No teasing, no doubt, only acknowledgement. Amara's chest swelled slightly. She had learned something precious. Belief in yourself could move mountains, even skeptical hearts. During science class, Naomi returned, not as a surprise guest, but to lead a mini-workshop. Amara was allowed to assist her mother in demonstrating real NASA propulsion systems. The classroom became a theater of science, awe, and inspiration. Naomi handed Amara a small model of a liquid-fuel rocket. Show them what we discussed yesterday, she said gently. Amara stepped to the center of the room. Her voice was steady, her words clear. This system uses a combination of liquid, hydrogen, and liquid oxygen, she explained, pointing to the model. The reaction produces thrust, which propels the rocket. It's designed for long-distance space travel like going to the moon or Mars. The students leaned in, wide-eyed. Questions poured out, technical, curious, eager. Amara answered confidently, remembering every lesson her mother had taught her. One student whispered, almost to herself, I want to be like her. Naomi noticed and smiled. Exactly the impact I hoped for, she thought. Later, the principal visited the classroom. Dr. Johnson, Amara's presentation inspired every student here, she said. I think we need to do something bigger. A science fair, a school-wide astronomy event, and I want Amara to be the star. Amara's eyes lit up. Her mother squeezed her shoulder gently, a quiet acknowledgement of the courage it took to stand tall yesterday, and every day before that. That evening, Amara and Naomi worked side by side at the kitchen table. Blueprints, sketches, and small models covered every inch of space. I want my project to show them that it's not just about my mom's work, Amara said, her tone firm. I want them to see that I can understand it too. Naomi nodded. That's right, baby. Knowledge isn't just inherited. It's earned, practiced, and shared. Amara smiled, a small spark of determination lighting up her eyes. The next day, Amara presented a detailed poster about the Artemis mission, complete with diagrams, formulas, and a miniature propulsion system she had built with her mother's guidance. Even students who had doubted her initially now crowded around, asking questions, taking notes, and marveling at her explanations. Mrs. Parker approached quietly. "Amara," she said, her voice soft, I owe you an apology. I didn't believe you, and I treated you unfairly." Amara smiled gently. "It's okay, ma'am. I wanted you all to see the truth." The teacher nodded, her eyes glistening. "And I do. Thank you for teaching me something important today." By the end of the week, Jefferson Elementary had changed. The whispers of doubt were replaced with excitement, curiosity, and respect. Amara's bravery had inspired her classmates, especially the girls, to dream bigger, to ask questions, and to believe in their own potential. As she walked home that day, backpack bouncing, Amara looked up at the sky. Stars glittered, indifferent to who stared at them, yet full of possibilities. She held her mother's hand tightly. "Mama," she said, "I think I'm ready for even bigger things." Naomi squeezed her daughter's hand. "And I'll be right there, every step of the way. Remember, Amara, courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about standing tall, even when the world doubts you." For Amara, every laugh, every doubt, every whispered word of disbelief had become fuel, not for anger, but for courage. The journey wasn't over. It had only just begun. Weeks passed, and Jefferson Elementary buzzed with excitement. The science fair was announced, and Amara knew this was her moment. Not just to showcase knowledge, but to show that courage, persistence, and truth always prevail. Her project was ambitious, a miniature ion propulsion system inspired by her mother's NASA work. She had built it with care, replicating real-life principles, and even added her own creative touches. Naomi helped, guiding her but letting her take the lead. The day of the fair arrived. The gymnasium was packed with students, parents, and teachers. Projects of all shapes and sizes lined the tables. Solar ovens, baking soda volcanoes, planets made of styrofoam. But one corner drew every eye, Amara's table. Her small rocket model glowed softly under a subtle light. Diagrams explained propulsion, energy, and orbit, all labeled neatly. Amara stood tall, radiating confidence she had never felt before. Her classmates crowded around, asking questions she answered with clarity and poise. Even the boy who had mocked her days before now listened with fascination. "Amara," whispered a girl with pigtails, "I want to do something like this too." Amara smiled. "You can. You just have to believe and keep learning." Then Naomi arrived, her presence commanding yet gentle. She walked over to her daughter and whispered, "Are you ready?" Amara nodded, gripping her project proudly. The judges toured the gym, stopping at each project. When they reached Amara's display, they were silent for a moment, taking in the detail, the innovation, and the confidence of the young presenter. "Tell us about your work, Amara," one judge requested. Amara took a deep breath. "This is an ion propulsion system similar to what NASA is developing for long-distance space travel. It's more efficient than chemical rockets and can help us reach planets farther than we ever imagined. I built this to show that anyone, regardless of age, background, or where they come from, can explore the universe if they believe in themselves." The judges exchanged impressed glances. The room was silent, all attention on her. When the awards were announced, Amara's heart pounded. Third place, second place, all gone. And first place goes to Amara Johnson for her ion propulsion system. Applause erupted. Students, teachers, and parents cheered. Naomi's eyes shimmered with pride. Amara stepped onto the stage, holding her certificate and a small scholarship for a summer science program. "Would you like to say a few words?" the principal asked. Amara took a deep breath. "I learned something important this year," she began, her voice steady. "People may doubt you. They may laugh at your dreams. But if you believe in yourself, work hard, and never give up, you can reach for the stars. And sometimes, the stars shine brighter when you share your light with others. The audience erupted in applause again. Mrs. Parker, standing quietly at the back, wiped her eyes. She whispered to herself, "I've learned more than I ever thought I could." Later that evening, Naomi and Amara stood outside under a sky filled with stars. "Mama," Amara said softly, "I feel like I'm ready for the next adventure." Naomi smiled and hugged her daughter tightly. "You already are, my love. The universe is waiting for you." And as the stars twinkled above, Amara understood something powerful. Courage, truth, and determination can break barriers, change minds, and inspire a whole world. She had faced doubt, humiliation, and prejudice, and had risen above it stronger than ever. This was only the beginning. And for everyone watching, remember, no matter who doubts you, how impossible it seems, or how far away your dreams are, if you believe in yourself, nothing can stop you. If this story inspired you, don't forget to subscribe for more heart-touching, motivational stories that remind you to stand tall, follow your dreams, and never let anyone limit your potential. Because sometimes the smallest voice, when backed by courage and truth, can shine brighter than the stars themselves.